We cannot allow barbaric laws to exist and for people to follow it, push it, defend it, yet argue for justice in Nigeria. But I come here as a missionary. I come here as a witness who's been on the ground in the very places that are being attacked. The very places that Nigerians themselves are too afraid to go to. Because I wanted to testify to the truth of what is happening. Lobbying groups like DCI, Islamic forces in Nigeria, and politicians want to try to label me as just some activist being paid by this person, paid by this organization. Our records are free and public online. Nobody has paid me and nobody sends me but God. And that's the very reason that I went to Nigeria. Because I knew that immense evil was happening. And I was questioning, why is this not mainstream in America? Why is the world not seeing and talking and acting when you see innocent people being killed in mass? Not just for 1 month, but for years, for 2 decades. And so I chose to go to Nigeria for that reason. I said, if nobody is going to help and nobody's going to stand, I will go and do it. And so I risked my own life to do just that. I knew nobody, but I chose to go because there was a call to do just that. And when I went to Nigeria, I was met immediately with killing. When I went to Plateau, and I went to build schools for Muslims in the north, in Miango, in Bokos, every day I'm getting reports, killing. Someone is messaging me, this person was ambushed, this attack happened, this village was burned. And I started to go spend time with victims' families. I started to go see the actual places that are being under attack as I was there. And I would meet women who are shedding tears and crying, just huddled in silence with their families because their husband was murdered and ambushed as he went to go farm. He wasn't a terrorist, he committed no criminal act. He was a Christian who was living in Miango. And because of that, he was killed. And even the very places that I went to go and visit to drill, that very night, Christians were beheaded. In the very village I went to, a matter of meters from where I was, Fulani came in the night, they beheaded a boy, they beheaded a father who had committed no wrong. And as I'm trying to build in other places, in Zike of Miango, 50 Christians were murdered. Their entire village was burned. I was there the next day as smoke is still rising from those very homes. And as I enter this village going down this road, you have women that are flailing in the road, crying and screaming because their husband was just killed. That's the truth. And we rebuilt that village. But as I went to enter and I went into one compound where at least 6 or 7 homes were burned, 7 people were killed in that family. You had dozens of women and children that were huddled into one single room in silence. They're just in shock. And I enter this room and I'm trying to think, Lord, speak through me. Help me to encourage to these people. Help me to comfort them. But I was speechless. I tried to say whatever I could, but I broke down crying because what can I say to change the reality of what just happened? Their families were slaughtered, their homes were burned, they're left hopeless without help. They are forsaken people. What can I say to them? But that moment changed me. I said, even if I have $1,000, it's going to be used to benefit these people. I will not allow these people to be forsaken at the hands of evil terrorists, nor to be forsaken by their government. If nobody else will do it to help them, I will do it. And so I began to rebuild. I began to specifically target the populations and the people that are being killed for their faith and being killed in innocence. And I've been a witness to those very things. I'm not speaking from a screen in America. I'm not being paid by some lobbying group like the DCI is to go and spew lies just for a cause because I'm getting a paycheck. I'm not being paid to be in Nigeria. I am spending money in Nigeria. I've spent more money in Nigeria than any country I've ever worked in. My largest initiative is in Nigeria to rebuild the villages that have been burned down by terrorists, which NGOs and governments are not doing. When I entered Nigeria, not one village had been built. We were the first ones to start rebuilding. And it was that first mission in Nigeria that I started to see the truth. You can hear things from afar, you can see statistics, you can see a Nigerian just say something, but there's always skepticism to what is the truth of what's happening. And I started to experience this on a first-person basis. When you can see blood splattered, when you can see women falling down in the streets crying, and you hear those cries echo as you sleep. As you see smoke rising from villages. It's more than just a picture. It's more than just a news story. It becomes a reality. And it's those things that shook me that impacted me in such a way that I could not sit on the sidelines. And that is why I chose to specifically take up the initiative in Nigeria to do what I'm doing, to begin to speak. Because I can't see these things happen and be silent. As a Christian, if you follow no God, it makes sense that you don't care. But for me, I'm a Christian and I follow Christ. And due to Psalm 82, we've been called to give justice to the oppressed, to the weak, the fatherless, to maintain the rights of the afflicted, to rescue the weak and the needy. And that is a call for us Christians. That means that is a call for me to act in Nigeria. And that's exactly what I've been doing. But we have evil forces that are lying and trying to cover up the truth. The government has made this clear. DCI Group has made this clear. And even myself, when I was in Nigeria a few months ago, I went to see a mass burial in the mortuary where the bodies were being held in Kuru of Jos South in Plateau State. I was refused entry by the Nigerian police, the DPO of that area. He said there was no attack, there's no reason for this burial to be covered, you should just leave. The Nigerian police did this. Yet the truth was that Christians were murdered in a mining site, having done no wrong. The bodies were still being cleaned and dragged through the mortuary with blood stains everywhere. You could hear the echoes of the people crying. And the police are saying, nothing happened. There was no attack. There was no murder. You don't need to be here. You don't need to show anybody. Just leave. I refused. Ezekiel Dachomo came. The youth leaders came. They said, ignore this person. You're going in, period. I went in. And what was I met with? I was met with boys, young men, who had bullet holes across their bodies. Blood was literally pouring out of those bullet holes as I was there. I had videos and I had pictures of this moment. You had blood stains of bodies that were dragged through the mortuary. People that were killed in innocence. And a father who was just looking at his son's body as blood is pouring out. People that are crying and wailing. They're saying, when will people stand for us? When will there be justice for people who are being killed innocently? And those moments only motivated me more. You have to speak. You have to act. This has to be told. Because this isn't just a terrorist group that is operating in one area doing some things. You have terrorist groups around Nigeria. You have the Fulani militia terrorists that are operating pretty much in every single state in Nigeria. And you have a government who is watching it and directly allowing it. And you cannot argue the facts. Why is it that the police will directly lie to me when I already knew the truth before I arrived? Tell me, why is it that leaders in the DSS, the Federal Security Agency of Nigeria, will tell me that only a few dozen were murdered in Yelwada? That they doubt even 30 people were killed in Yelwada and Benue. When 1 year ago, almost 300 Christians were killed. At least 100 buildings were burned to the ground, homes and shops. And yet it's a federal person high in power who says it was only 30 people. Yet I already knew the truth. The group of the persecuted just built a monument in Yelwada with every name of the person who was killed. And guess how many there were? Almost 300. So, if federal people, if security forces are directly lying and misleading about the truth, what does that say? It paints an extremely dark picture. Even the reverend, the now governor of that state, says there's no genocide. It's just ethnic. It's just farming disputes. This is what you're going to hear from the lobbying group. This is what you're going to hear from governors and paid actors of the government in Nigeria. It's just farmer-herder conflict. It's just ethnic. There's no religious aroma about this. There's no persecution. There's no intentional killing and targeted killing. It's just this conflict. It is being mischaracterized to be something it's not. This is what they tell you. But we have some very important questions we have to ask. Let's say that it is because of global warming. They're migrating from the country, the Republic of Niger. They're coming further south because they need more grass for their cattle. Let's go with this. I'll ask you this question. If the Fulani terrorists have taken over all of the interior rural lands, why are they going to the main roads that lead to the capital? Why are they killing people and burning villages along main roads if they already have taken over all the interior land that is vast? Is the grass any different? If you go 10 kilometers interior, is that grass better than the grass along the road? The answer is no. And if it's about competition, if the Fulani are competing for that grass, this means that other Fulani herders are eating the same grass. This means that anybody who is using that grass is a competitor. Why are they not killing other Fulani?
Yes.
Why are they not killing other Muslims? Why is it that across Plateau, in Benue, in Taraba, in Kaduna, these places, they are directly and only killing Christians? I'm not speaking to Borno, I'm not speaking to Zamfara and Sokoto. I'm talking about the Middle Belt. Areas that they are directly targeting and killing Christians. Why are they not killing other Fulani people? They're eating the same grass. They are just as much of a competitor as the Christians are, yet they're not attacking Fulani settlements. They're not killing Fulani people. They're not beheading them. They're not going into their villages chanting Allahu Akbar and slaughtering people. They're only going to the Christians. Even as I'm rebuilding a village in Barkin Ladi, my own worker took a machete to his head. The very village we're rebuilding, 7 people were just killed last month. They were Christians. Did they do anything wrong? Did they commit a crime? They didn't. They were targeted. They were killed because of who they are. And it shows that there is an effort to displace people, to take over. There's a greater agenda at hand. Just 2 days ago in Mushere, Bokos, they killed over 20 Christians. A few days before that in Kaduna, they murdered more Christians. Essentially, they cut a boy's head in half. A 5-year-old boy, a 6-year-old boy. I want you to imagine that. Your own son or your own daughter having their head cut in half in the name of so-called global warming and grass conservation. I'm sick of these lies. I'm sick of people distorting the reality. I'm sick of people that are hiding the truth of what is happening. It's been too long. It's been 2 decades. It is time that people tell the truth, that people actually act, that people call it for what it is. They're not bandits. They're not herders. They are terrorists.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And if the foreign community and the Nigerian government refuse to call it for what it is, it's no surprise that this goes on for 2 decades. They can't even admit who the actual perpetrators are. What else do you call when someone enters the village yelling Allahu Akbar, beheading people, burning villages? What do you call that? Is that just normal criminality? Is that someone who just goes and steals a phone and runs off? Is that gang violence? It is all-out terrorism. Yes. And it's part of a greater Islamic agenda. Yes. Because we see people that are being targeted, people that are being killed because of their faith. If you blaspheme Muhammad, if you blaspheme the Quran, if you say something that Muslims disagree with, they have the right to kill you. This is how they view themselves. And this is what we see consistently in Nigeria. Please, give me a moment to talk about Deborah. In Sokoto State. She was a Christian in university. She was in a group chat talking about her exam. She was happy. People were talking about Islam. She questioned, why are we talking about Islam in a school group chat? The Muslims were so angry. They said that she blasphemed Muhammad in the Quran. They went and they stoned her. They put tires around her and burned her alive. Is there justice today for Deborah? Was one person arrested and held accountable? The answer is no. Bounties are put on the heads of pastors if they blaspheme. People are killed if they blaspheme. Is this compatible with any free society in the world today? It is not. It is barbaric. Sharia is barbaric.
It is.
And that's part of the basis of this meeting today. If you want a free society in Nigeria, if you want religious persecution to be over, it is incompatible with having Sharia established across the country. And this is a great initiative of Muslims in Nigeria, because to be a Muslim is to follow, believe, and establish Sharia. They're intertwined, interwoven. You cannot separate them. And so we cannot fight for justice when the very basis of an injustice is Sharia. Because on the basis of Sharia, there's injustice. If you do not submit and follow, you will be targeted. Which country in the world where Islam is primary is there freedom of religion? Is there freedom of the press? Is there freedom of speech? Is there freedom of action and practice? Is there freedom in Somalia? Is there freedom in Yemen? Is there freedom in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in the UAE, in Malaysia, Iran, Pakistan? Which of these places where Islam rules is there freedom? There's not. Yet they come to our places and take advantage of our freedom to establish Islam and to establish the same laws that we are trying to fight. We cannot allow Sharia to take over here, and we should not allow it to take over Nigeria. If Nigeria falls, Africa falls. That is the truth. And if the West does not view this to be a threat, you are so wrong. Because it's happening under our own eyes in our own country, let alone in Nigeria. And we have to stand against that. We have to stand against Sharia. We have to stand against terrorism. And we have to take extreme measures to protect our country and to protect those that are innocent.